Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green. This is Psychic True Crime. And today we are doing a reading on the Gabby Petito case. If you are aware, she is a missing person. Now her fiance, Brian Laundrie, is also missing. He is believed to be associated with her disappearance, although there is no clear or hard evidence at this time. The Northport police have identified Brian as a person of interest, although he has since gone missing too. There are a lot of unknowns in this case, a lot of variables, and so we're going to do a reading today and see what we can gather. I will tell you, there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle. It's not one of those puzzles that can be sort of straight to the point, okay, now we got it, moving on. There seems to be a lot of influences happening here, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up before we dive in that is the case. I also want to share something important, and that's that because the family has not gotten an answer, and because the family has not experienced any semblance of justice at this time, I am going to do my best to share what's coming up in the cards, the energy of the cards, while also honoring that family and their daughter. It can be a very sensitive topic, obviously, to dive into this when there aren't any clear and firm answers, and I would never want to be the one to deliver bad news. So please take this with a grain of salt. This is for entertainment purposes only. I have to say that not only legally, but also because I think it's important that we recognize this is just one reading, and I pick up on the energy of the cards, and so it can take 1,000 different forms. We look at the energy, and at the end of the day, most of the time we can only find out what spirit wants us to find out. So it's what's going to serve the highest good of all. And I know that's a long introduction. I know that's a long disclaimer, but because we don't have any final answers and this is so fresh, I do not want to put the salt in the wound for anybody. So if this is going to be something that does put salt in your wound and or triggers you, I encourage you to leave the channel now. And I say that respectfully for you. So right off the bat, I want to share that from the reading, I don't believe Gabby is with us any longer. And I hope that it's wrong. I hope that it's wrong. I hope that the energy that's showing up isn't accurate. That way we find her alive and well. But at this point, it looks like she's no longer with us. And so I do want to share that. And I know most of the time, you wouldn't tell someone that or open with that because, right, it's YouTube. You want to hold that out to the very end and keep everyone watching. But we're going to talk about the story. We're going to talk about Gabby. We're going to talk about Brian according to the cards, according to the energy here. We're going to talk about the events leading to her disappearance, which may very well turn out to be her passing. And then we're going to talk about any clues or evidence that might help us find her location. We're going to talk about the outcome here and future potentials, where this is going. Energy can change at any moment. It really depends on what happens. So this is where we're at right now. This is time stamped for this moment. Anything can change from here. So we're showing that right off the bat, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, you guys. Let me show you. The search. Do you see this card? When I pulled cards for Gabby, right away, it's the search. Okay? So I think her spirit, if she has since passed, is aware that we are looking for her. She's aware that there is a nation who is, or even global awareness, global public that is searching for her. I feel like she is aware of her passing. If she has passed, I think she's aware of, it's almost like when you get into that state after you've passed, that liminal state between physical life on earth and the afterlife. Whether she's still there in that liminal phase or not, I feel like she's well aware of what happened. And I do feel her spirit is a little saddened by it. Because the thing is, she had big dreams and a big vision and an idea of how her life would go and how this journey and adventure would go. And it seems like it has turned out in a way that is not favorable. And specifically because I see someone who is battered and bruised here. And this could be travel weary and or weary from the experiences, whatever it is that led to her disappearance. But this could also be physical, but I feel an emotional weariness here primarily. I mean, we see the battered and bruised here, but I feel an emotional weariness, like a letdown. Gosh, this didn't go the way that I wanted. So I'm feeling that right away. I'm feeling like, again, I'm getting the energy that I'm really trying to find a way to code some of this stuff. I'm feeling some conflict, some inner battle, some inner struggle. I don't know what was happening between the both of them, but I do feel like she was challenged in one way or the other. There was some kind of internal battle going here. There was some kind of internal struggle, some kind of internal conflict. And I know that it seems like obvious. Oh, well, yeah, right? There's this body cam from the police. Of course there was conflict going on, but this isn't showing necessarily conflict between them, although we do get there. We have conflict within herself. So I think maybe she was questioning herself, battling herself, maybe even wondering if this was the right thing, maybe going against her own intuition. But I feel like there were some red flags, but I also feel like her own inner turmoil, like her own issues, right? This doesn't feel like it's like, oh, she just has an issue with her fiance. It feels like she has her own share of issues, like we all do. And it looks like she's moving through that. I do also feel like I'm trying to find ways. I feel like she might be out in nature somewhere. If she has since passed and she has since left the physical realm, that her remains and or her body have been left out in nature somewhere, potentially in water. Although I also see that it could be out in nature somewhere. Again, people could say, oh, well, obviously, duh. Like, of course, that's where she would be left. But we're getting that in the cards, so I'm going to share it with you. I feel like currently, again, she has since passed. That is where I'm at the moment, okay? And I'm struggling to share some of this because, this isn't something that we know factually yet. And again, I don't want to bring bad news to an already very tragic situation, but that's where I'm at right now. Let's see what else is coming up here. Gosh, this is hard. I don't know how to talk about this stuff because we're supposed to keep it relatively PG for the channel as well. So please excuse me while I take the time to articulate this, because again, I want to honor not only the family, but also I have to keep it relatively PG. So I'm really trying. But I do feel like this could have been, I see a lot of attention around the throat. So I don't know if that was a part of the experience. I am feeling this was a heat of the moment thing. This was a passion thing, a conflict driven thing. I don't think this was something that was premeditated or expected. I do see some challenges, some disagreement, some conflict over money, which to me is ironic, not something that I would have expected as my ego personality, Errity. I don't get to decide. I certainly have no idea, so who am I to say? I'm simply sharing that I wouldn't have thought right away there was any kind of material motive here, but I do see there was some conflict and challenge around, not like who wore the pants, but like even maybe who's like the social media star, who's making the money, who has the money, who doesn't have money. Maybe someone felt disempowered because they didn't have money. Could that have been Brian? We'll look into that. We'll see as we go. But there was some energy here, some disagreement about who has the power in the relationship, who has the money in the relationship, who's the star in the relationship. That energy of like someone's holding all of the control or kind of holding the reins, and the other person feeling like they didn't have that power. And so it might have taken the form of money, but in truth, it was a disempowerment that was being felt. My best guess at this point, where we're at in the reading, is that this was more than likely Brian, who felt disempowered in the relationship, and Gabby, who had all the control in the relationship. I know some people are going to be upset about that too. They're going to be like, oh, Brian's a narcissist, because everyone's a narcissist anymore and every criminal is a narcissist, which is not true, but that's just the trend. And that's what the common rhetoric online is anymore. And I am certainly not justifying, excusing, enabling, or any of that for any killer, anyone at all who has hurt anyone, harmed anyone, or done anything at all to contribute to someone's disappearance and or demise. So let's make that 100% clear. I am reading the energy. That's it. Right? Because I'm with you on, if someone is guilty, they need to face the consequences and face the music of their actions. Disempowered or not. Just because we're disempowered, it doesn't give us the right to hurt, to harm. But either way, it was going to be something that was a crime of passion. It has to do with conflict. I do feel energy around her throat. But this could also be, whether it was literal or not, this feels like someone who can't speak, who can't say, oh, this is where I'm at, or this is what happened to me. Someone who is now in a position. So let's just say if someone was alive in this scenario and they were missing, if they were held up and bound and gagged somewhere, which I don't that's not at this point in time what the reading is suggesting, but there is a lot of energy around the throat, which means to me a silencing, someone who's unable to speak their truth, someone who's unable to come out and say, hey, this is what happened to me. I do feel a lot of somber energy here. There's a lot of energy around sadness, loss, disappointment. I didn't think it would go this way. I didn't expect it to turn out this way. I thought it was going to be different. I was really hoping this would turn out, and it in fact didn't. I feel like, there's a lot of, somber energy, we'll say, at least in her line of cards. I mean, let me show you some of this. We already showed you a little bit. Let me show you some more so you can get an idea of what I'm speaking to here. Okay, so take a look. We have a lot of just somber energy, flat affect, things not working out. And then we have the Ten of Swords, the ultimate betrayal. The ultimate betrayal here. And I think many of us could imagine whether that betrayal ended up in a physical demise and or it was it being left out in the cold and abandoned is still to be known by the public, by the collective. But I feel like the energy is telling us here that she is likely no longer with us. And we do have this card here, the Ten of Swords, the ultimate betrayal. And, someone who, to me, based on the energy that's here, has likely moved on from the earthly realm. So let me see if there's anything. I think there was shock here. I think there was pain. There was surprise and revelation in how this unfolded, something that was not at all expected. But I do feel like when it comes to the contributing factor as to the motivation, because we say, okay, well, what's the motivation? Why would he hurt her? Why would he even leave her if that was just him leaving her behind even? And there was no physical conflict or assault or anything that led to a disappearance or demise. She seems like she has a lot of power, or at least a lot of perceived power. And I don't think that was well liked by the other party. So that's what we're seeing so far. The thing is, she might not have had a lot of control in the relationship, but she had a lot of control of the other external variables. It's not showing specifically that she had more power in the relationship. It's more of like, maybe she was in charge of the money. She was in charge of the social media. She was in charge of like their vision, their quest. And I feel like there was some disagreement or conflict around that specifically. But even I have felt money a lot, and I don't know why. I don't know how that would be relevant, why that would be relevant. But it's here, so I'm sharing on it. So let's talk about Brian. So we talked about Gabby. Again, this is all allegedly for entertainment purposes only. Now we're talking about Brian. I feel like we have someone who is like in a deep space right now. All these cards are dark. They are deep. They are heavy. They are gray. They're without color. I forgot to show this card for Gabby as well, by the way, after the storm. So she may have passed on as a result of that too. When we're talking about Brian, we have someone, I feel like someone who has a new beginning. We have the Fool in the Tarot here, a new beginning. And we also have a lot of reflection cards, a lot of fear, concern, attachment, prayer, like maybe even worry, like concern for how things are going to go. But we do have a new beginning. So that tells me that another chapter has closed. And that seems sort of obvious as a viewer, I think, when you're watching, or even me as I'm hearing it or receiving the energy. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, a new beginning. He's left her behind one way or the other. But I feel like there's some deep reflection here and subconscious sort of exploration with himself. We have someone who kind of changed his mind. I want to get my cards set up here because they're all mixed up. So give me a moment to do that. So while we sense the new beginning and a change of mind or a new perspective, there's also this energy of perhaps a little bit of regret and remorse and reflection and doubt. Did I do the right thing? Did I make the right choice? Perhaps even something stronger or heavier than that, like probably, not a good idea. I do based on these cards, I feel like it's like showing basically multiple cards showing new beginning, multiple cards showing, but it's very mixed signals, very mixed feelings. It's like, okay, guilt, regret, remorse, uncertainty. Did I make the right choice? But then I have all this energy of, okay, I can start again. I'm going to start over. I can move on from this. Things can change. This might even actually turn out to be better for me. If only I can do this, then this will turn out. It's almost like, again, that mixed feeling or that mixed bag of, okay, I have a lot of regret, remorse here, and uncertainty about my choices, whatever, whether that's he left her behind or did in fact physically bring about the Ten of Swords here for her. But I feel like he's also feeling like, oh, new chapter. And I don't, allegedly, because this feels a little bit twisted, right, for someone to be jumping into that right away. I do wonder if he is in the woods. I know that's something that's already known by the public, but we have the woods energy here, where I feel like he might be like, okay, I'm going to venture out into the woods or the unknown or foreign territory, and maybe I'm going to disappear and be able to start again. I'm able to start anew. No one's going to know. From a dark place, I will rise. Things will change. Things can be good on me. I can start again. But I do feel a lot of energy of, again, remorse, doubt, fear, but maybe even deceit. That's not 100% clear in terms of like, sometimes we get that con artist energy or even plain, obviously, deceit card, but it feels like an undercurrent that could be something that's here too. We also have a lot of prayer energy, a lot of gray. A lot of these cards are gray or dark. Someone who's sitting in a lot of their feels or, spending a lot of time sitting in their fears. Did I say that twice? I mean, look, we have someone who is, I think, in a time of really moving through it and reflecting on themselves and trying to start again, or thinking that it's like very mixed though, because like all the other cards are like, oh, good, we're going to start again. The Fool and the Tarot, the Ace of Pentacles, the Seven of Cups. Where do I want to go from here? Things are going to change for me now. I'm moving forward. I'm moving on with my life. That kind of energy. I'm sure that's triggering and offensive for some people. So by all means, I understand how upsetting or triggering that could be. And yet, that's what's here in the cards. Let me see if there's anything else that's coming through too at a deeper level without the cards. Because I feel an undercurrent of energy, and hopefully we'll get it. Hopefully we'll be able to speak to it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the events that led to her disappearance. So we have two people who believe that they are soulmates. They believe that they are meant for each other. They believe like kind of star-crossed lovers, like no matter what, we can be together. I feel like they had a big vision for themselves, an idea of how things were going to go. I really feel like both of them, when we spoke to this when we opened, where even Gabby had this big vision for how things were going to go and this big dream. And again, she might have been the mastermind of this whole thing. It looks like she was. It looks like this might have been her idea. And he was sort of along for the ride, but I don't know if he liked that. I feel like, again, there was a disempowerment there. But let's see what else is here. I have the energy of, working towards something, working toward a success, a dream, maybe even fame. I think they were seeking fame. They were seeking success. They were sort of trying to figure it out, carve this path for themselves, forge the way. And then they were thinking this was going to be the dream. They were thinking this is going to be, okay, like we've made it. Like we've done this, we've made it. But it turned out to be a lot more of like a spiritual thing in terms of a healing than they expected, perhaps. So, of course, it's all alleged for entertainment purposes only, and I'm reading the energy here, but it's like it's like that energy of the Fool and the Tarot, right? Like we talked about earlier. We're gonna do this, and it's so cool, and how awesome. It's like how some people are when they're gonna have a baby. Like, we're gonna have a baby, it's gonna be amazing. And they actually do it, and they're like, hey-oh. It's kind of like that energy, like, oh, wow, like, okay. We actually have to like face our stuff, and they started encountering, I feel like, more challenges, but especially emotional than what they expected. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going to take a moment to sit with the cards. So I'll share a couple of cards with you. We have the Five of Cups and we have the Devil. And when we talk about the events that led to her disappearance, we have people seeking this journey for fame, for success, for this big vision. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be this fairy tale basically. But then they discover it's not at all what they expected. Perhaps it's a lot harder. Perhaps they're having to face their demons and face each other, and it's some deeper stuff. I think that they ran into some things they weren't fully expecting. This could also be, having run out of resources, but I feel like this is more so disappointment. This is more like, well, this didn't turn out the way that we thought. And this might very well especially be, I think this is both of them. This is the energy of the connection, the relationship at the time. But I also feel like this might be where Brian allegedly, that he was like, well, this isn't going to work out. This isn't working out. I don't like how this is turning out. And boom, perhaps the heat of the moment, passion driven conflict that ultimately led to her disappearance or her demise, whether he left her behind and she passed, or he was the one responsible for her disappearance and potential demise. Okay? But something happened here, whether he fled or whether he killed. That's what's showing up right here with the devil, where he gave up. F this, it's not going to work anymore. I can see where this is going. This isn't going where I thought it was going to go. This isn't working out the way I had hoped. This isn't working for me. And bada bing, bada boom. So now we're going to talk about how we can, what are some things that can help us locate her or find her. Again, we're getting a lot of energy around money. I don't know why that would be a factor. I don't quite understand that, but we do have multiple energies of wealth and abundance and fulfillment. And I feel like somehow, some way, either there was an imbalance in the connection in terms of wealth and money and resources, or it was a situation where Brian, there could have been a motivation here in terms of, okay, well, if this variable is out of the way, so to speak, I will be able to encounter more money somehow. I don't know how. I don't know how that's connected, but I do feel like there's a material motive of some kind. Either it's a motive or it was a reason for their conflict, right? So we talked about that earlier too. Maybe some jealousy or some disempowerment, or she was running. Her name was on the bank account, or maybe she was the one who had the cash or whatever. But one way or another, I feel like there was a monetary either motive or reason that at least led to or contributed to where this ended up going. So I feel like there are some things that are still hidden, and I think that's obvious, right? Not everything has been revealed, and oftentimes when things haven't been revealed to the public, there's a reason for it. Meaning, when we go looking like we are here, I don't mean that we tend to come up dry, but we very rarely get a smoking gun. And that's because we're not meant to know until we know. And when we know, that's when we're meant to know. And so there's only so many cracks and nooks and crannies we can kind of dig into and find, because at the end of the day, if we don't have the hard evidence, there's a reason why it hasn't come forward in the physical. Okay? So all of that to say, I think there's still some things, variables that are hidden here, but I do feel like there's a monetary motive in one way or another. Again, I am feeling the energy of a passion or conflict-driven result, because we have here the Eight of Swords and we have the Flame Tree. And I read intuitively, I don't necessarily go by the meaning on the card, although sometimes, this looks like an untimely and or undesirable demise and or precarious situation that wasn't necessarily predicted or foreseen, but happened in more of a heat of the moment kind of situation. Let's see here. But the energy was really about how do we find her. So I'm wondering, I feel like really ultimately it's going to come from him. So hopefully, he's located. I do have the energy again that she might be in water and or she could be on land. That's not like that's not out of the question. It's like, but we keep getting underwater as a theme and lying down. So that's why it makes me wonder, okay, and something around the throat. But again, a lot of this could be, right, more figurative and metaphorical. That's the thing about energy and spirit. It tends to speak in metaphors. So people can get confused, like not just the people who share it, but the viewers can get confused and say, well, you said this and they said that. Well, a lot of what we get from spirit is metaphorical. It's like allegory, and it's figurative. It's not always literal, and so that's where things can become confusing too. So, but we are looking at someone who is likely, not well, to say the least, and is lying down. If it was showing me someone who was on her feet, and or in the woods, and or any position other than in every single one lying down or underwater or something on the throat, I would consider, okay, you know, there was a possibility here that we're going to find her alive and we just need to locate her. But I am feeling like right now her truth is being silenced, and it could be because he might be the only one who's going to be able to share the truth and say what happened. I think he's kind of counting his, like, there's a saying about like the pros and cons kind of thing, like, okay, if I did this, this would happen. If I did that, that would happen. If I said this, this would happen. And he's kind of just determining, okay, what is my next move? What do I say? But we got the energy earlier of him attempting to or trying to move on and considering, you know, oh, you know, maybe I can start again. Maybe this won't be the end for me, you know, that kind of energy where he's thinking, oh, I'm the Fool in the Tarot. I can just start again and make anew. So we do have that energy too. It doesn't show him coming forward at this time. Let's see what else we're at. Again, I'm getting the energy of nature when we say, where is she at? We have the Seven of Wands, which shows me someone's maybe even struggling in the woods to kind of find a solution, figure things out. And then we have someone who's sleeping with an owl on their head in the picture. And we have Enchanted Forest, you know, under a moon. A lot of nature cards, a lot of sleeping women cards, which again would lead me to one conclusion over another. Last but not least, we have the outcome. And I feel like, again, we are getting, I mean, you can't, I keep on saying it, but take a look. I have the outcome here. We have these cards, liberation, look, 2 doves, and then we have a woman covered in like algae and stuff underneath the water. And it's remembrance. So I feel like perhaps at this time, more than anything, we'll be looking at a tribute, eulogy, things like that, more so than a finding or discovering of her alive and well. And that's allegedly for entertainment purposes only. I hope that that's not the case. I do not want to be the bearer of bad news in a situation like this. But this kind of energy would give me hope. It's like perhaps she's being remembered in this sort of gloom doom kind of way. But ultimately, there's this message here that there is peace beyond, okay? That everything is actually okay in the afterlife. Like, yes, it looks very kind of drab and tragic and devastating here, and that's like barely touching the surface. You know, how dare I even put it that way? It's the tip of the iceberg, most certainly. And when we go beyond the earthly realm, things aren't as difficult, things aren't as heavy, and there's more freedom there than anything else. So let's see what else is here. The outcome. You know, we have someone moving on their own. So we get that energy again of someone moving on and being on their own. I mean, it's very obvious to me. Let's show you the cards. That way you can see it. So it looks like this one, we do have a woman standing in this one, moving on. But I think more than likely, based on the other energies so far that we see in the reading, that we have a woman who is in the water or just in nature. And that's what's trying to be conveyed to us. Again, she's lying down. We also have doves, and then we have someone else moving on alone. I think that would be more like Brian at this point. Let's see what else here. People cutting their losses, moving forward. Let's see what else. I'm going to sit here with the cards here to finish up. So to finish up with this reading with the final cards, you know, in addition to what I've already shared, I'm basically getting that someone left alone, and I think that was Homeboy, and someone was left behind because we have someone in nature, in the elements. When I asked if Gabby was still with us, I got this card. We have another person in water. So I don't know, you know, if that will come to pass, if we will ever find that to be true, or if we'll find her elsewhere. You know, I also pulled this card as well, which tells me someone's alone and are sad. We kind of got that somber energy earlier of regret and that liminal phase of like, gosh, I wish my life went a little bit differently. Well, that's not what I expected, and a loss of what could have been. I am getting, again, the energy of someone who's sort of sitting pretty. When I talked about the outcome of Brian, we have the Nine of Cups, we have the King of Pentacles, and the Three of Swords, which could be deceit, betrayal, but also sitting pretty. We have Nine of Cups, King of Pentacles, which tells me, again, he's either, there was a material motive or a drive, and that's what led to this, and or he thought there was more potential on the other side of whether leaving her behind or being responsible for her disappearance in one form or another, where he was thinking, okay, well, this is actually better for me. There's a better potential on the other side of this. I'd rather do whatever I must do, Three of Swords, and there's better potential for me on the other side of this. But we also have him leaving something behind, potentially. So they're, either leaving her behind directly, explicitly, but this could also be perhaps leaving evidence behind that will eventually lead to discovery. I feel like we also have this card, which is another card that could tell us that there's an energy of moving into the afterlife. It's evolution, but also the bright colors there, the sunshine and the light, show me that there's a potential that there was a moving on of some kind of transition of some kind. And we have this card too. When I said, how is Brian responsible for her disappearance? We have this. So again, there's someone leaving, holding out on someone, trying to gather resources, trying to run away with something. He expected to gain something as a result of this. Was it a new life, new chapter, a new beginning, like F this, I'm over it? Was it there was actually going to be resources like physical money, or who knows, whatever he thought he was going to get something out of this. Now we do have crime of passion though, so this wasn't necessarily premeditated where I think, oh, I'm going to get something out of this and let me go do this. It's more of like, in that moment, the heat of the moment, it's better off for this to be over and gone and done with and dealt with than otherwise. And so then whatever action was taken. So that's where we're at. I wish I had better news for you. I wish I had more information for you. This is where we're at right now. It's still very early on in the disappearance. We may encounter clearer energies as we go, because again, things are dropped into consciousness or into revelation as it's available and like sort of permitted. And so perhaps we'll end up doing a round 2 if we need to. But for now, it appears that Brian is in a situation, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, of mixed feelings, but thinking like he has a new lease on life, but definitely has some regret, remorse, or at least some guilt, fear, concern, where he's like deciding his next step, kind of assessing the pros and cons, which way am I going to go? But we do have the Fool in the Tarot and someone who's relatively sitting pretty in the situation, or at least more resourced or in a better position than the other. And then we have Gabby, where most of the energies that were coming up were a big vision, wanting to be a star or wanting to be famous, wanting to be successful, and then sort of running into a disappointment, running into something that she never expected, running into facing a lot of her own demons and her own internal struggle, running into what may very well be, we have the Ten of Swords and the Three of Swords, her demise, and then a woman who is oftentimes in all of these cards lying down and primarily in water or out in the elements, and someone again who is weary. And then of course we have someone who has given up and things didn't go as expected, which led to that devil moment that we encountered earlier, which likely was that heat of the moment, passion-based conflict that very well may have been murder, but it could also have been someone who was like, I'm done, left someone behind. I'm going to leave that final question up to you. I shared the energies and where I think the energy is at this time. With that said, there's never any finality with these cards or with the moment until it's brought into